It's been one of the messier weeks for the government during this term. So how are they going to get out of this current funk? Joining me is my Sky News colleague, former Labor Minister Graham Richardson. Thanks for your time. It really does feel like there's quite an own goal out of this immigration issue. The High Court decision was Wednesday, and it was the sort of changing of the story. They'd have to wait for the full decision. They couldn't have any new legislation. There'd be constitutional issues, and suddenly they were forced into it and made any change the coalition wanted. Is this just the usual fault lines in terms of the parties, and is Labor going to not lose a lot of skin, or has this been pretty damaging?
Oh, well, I don't think you can escape an incident like this with no damage. There's got to be some. By the same token, I don't think it's a fatal accident. I think it's just one of those things that happen to you in government. You get most of it right, but you're going to get a bit of it wrong.
As to the fallout from it, I guess it depends from here what happens. But the other thing the coalition put a real spotlight on was the fact that as it was sort of unfolding, and Anthony Albanese left to go for APEC as it was still unresolved and he should be here. What did you make of that? Because Joe Biden had invited Anthony Albanese, but Joe Biden also didn't turn up to the quadrilateral dialogue when he was sorting out a domestic issue. Could Anthony Albanese have sent Richard Marles and Penny Wong? Would that have been a snub?
Yeah, look, I mean, I suppose he could have, but obviously they're not going to have the same impact, particularly in just the way it looks. And the way it looks to the eye is very important in these things. So I think, Anthony could have stayed home, but I think probably when the crunch came, he made the right decision.
It feels like it's almost a rite of passage now for Prime Ministers to have a honeymoon period, go on a few overseas trips and then get criticised for being too much of a jet setter. Is it just that we have to go to these things? We're a middle power, if you like, and to get noticed we have to send Prime Ministers, but it's fodder for oppositions?
I think that's mostly right. The truth is you've got to send the boss if you want to make a noise, and you want that noise to be heard. So you send the boss. But whenever you send the boss, you're going to get criticism. That's inevitable especially in Australian politics. It's what we're good at, having a go at people who move and who move in the right direction. We always seem to have a go. It's the tall poppy syndrome, which I think has held us back far more often than it's done us good.
Yeah, Labor maybe has a problem with decision making. We saw the sort of slow, gradual decision eventually made on legislation on the people that are being released from being indefinitely detained. And then there's infrastructure. The 90-day review became 200 days. How has this been handled, do you think? Because most experts say, look, there was just too much in the pipeline, but the way this has happened and been dragged out has frustrated the states. Is that just always going to be the case, and Queensland's kicking up a storm because that'll look popular?
When does Queensland not kick up a storm? I mean, they're always the ones doing that. That's the Queenslanders' role in the Commonwealth. No, look, I think this is just normal politics. I don't think we should get too carried away with it at all.
Interested on this as a final thought, Richo, because obviously we've got another rate rise that's happened. Maybe there are more on the way, and how the government spends, precious little money on the budget on helping people. Do you think stage 3 income tax cuts, as they are safe, are going to happen, or do you think this is still a live debate or could become one within the Cabinet?
It can certainly become one because the stage 3 cuts are big, very big. And, the exigencies that come up from time to time, you just can't predict. And if something happens that suddenly requires some real money, then they're going to have a look at them. But the trouble is there's so much political investment in them that it's very hard to see how you withdraw them or even weaken them.
Well, I think the only way it'd have to be to redistribute the same money, I guess, because then you can argue you're giving the same amount of tax cut. Yeah,
although, if you're direct with giving money, it helps, and so I think if they're forced into any form of change here, it won't be a good look, and probably won't be good economics either.